I walked into that steakhouse already bracing for a hit. My name's Dan. I'm 58. I live in Indiana now, renting a two-bedroom apartment near I-70. I work contract maintenance jobs, whatever's steady enough to keep the lights on, and flexible enough that I don't drop dead from it. I'm divorced. And if you ask my ex-wife's family who I was the guy who never quite made it. The one who always almost got there. Before we start, quick note, share where you're watching from, city, country, whatever. Just curious who's out there listening. That night was supposed to be my birthday. Marlene, my ex, had called earlier that week and said she wanted to do something low-key but special for my birthday. I should have known right then. That woman couldn't say 2 words without tucking a trap behind the second one. She picked a steakhouse off Route 36, one of those places her family loves but I can't stand. Loud, fluorescent, tables packed too close, menus sticky with barbecue sauce and false nostalgia. When I walked in, I saw the whole gang already there. Her parents, her 2 brothers, her sister, a couple in-laws, all smiling like they'd rehearsed it. Phones pointed at the door like I was a TikTok video. Her dad had that fake chuckle he used when he was about to say something sideways. Vince, her older brother, was already halfway through a beer, leaning back like he owned the place. Marlene stood up and kissed me on the cheek like we were still married. Dinner was what I expected. Her mom asked if I was still in between big gigs. Her dad asked if I was putting away anything for retirement this time. I smiled, nodded, swallowed it all. 28 years I spent with that family. And not once did they ask a question they didn't already think they had the answer to. Then the server came out with a sheet cake. Big one. One of those grocery store specials with too much frosting and colors that don't exist in nature. Everyone turned toward me, phones up again. Like this was supposed to be the grand finale. For half a second, I let my guard down. Maybe, I thought, just maybe Marlene shut them down for once. Maybe this was her way of saying, I've got your back. Then I saw it. In blue frosting, big block letters, all caps, still can't get it right. The whole table exploded. Laughter, clapping, someone slapped the table like it was a stand-up routine. Vince damn near spit beer through his nose. Her sister wiped tears from her eyes. Her mom leaned over and said, I needed thicker skin. Marlene put a hand on my arm. Relax, Dan. It's just family humor. You're always too sensitive. I didn't say a word. I pushed my chair back, stood up. Vince stood too, moved quick, grabbed my arm. Don't embarrass everybody. Come on. I leaned in real close, like I was about to whisper an apology. But I said one thing, right in his ear, just one sentence. His face went flat, tight, pale. Then I walked out. Didn't touch the cake, didn't say goodbye, left the whole room laughing behind me. I didn't drive home angry, I just drove with the windows down, letting cold air hit my face. The laughter from the steakhouse was still in my ears, but it was fading. What stuck harder was how normal it had felt for a second, like I'd walked into another holiday dinner, another birthday, another night where I took the hit and smiled like it didn't land. I got home, locked the door behind me, and didn't turn on the lights. Just sat at the kitchen table, same spot I eat cereal in, same spot I check my email for job alerts. Phone buzzing every few minutes. Marlene, her mom, Vince, probably trying to explain the joke or spin it into, we didn't mean it like that. I let them all go to voicemail. Marlene's family never came out and said I was a loser. They didn't have to. It was in the way her mom asked me every Christmas if I'd found anything more permanent yet. Like contract work wasn't real. It was in the way her dad would toast providers at Thanksgiving, and then look straight at Craig, Marlene's sister's husband, the orthopedic sales rep who drove a new truck every 2 years and had a Peloton in his garage. My daughter Maddie once asked me why Uncle Craig always paid when we went out for family dinners. I told her he was just generous. She shrugged and said, Mom says it's because you never plan ahead. She was 11. That hit harder than any cake ever could. I'd put in decades with that family. Took care of their daughter, raised their grandchildren, fixed their broken toilets at midnight, drove her dad to his follow-up appointments when no one else wanted to. But none of it ever counted. I was always a step behind Craig, like I was trying to run a race in boots while he got a head start in cleats. and I let it go on. I let it all happen because every time I pushed back, Marlene said I was making things tense. If I called out her parents, I was starting something. If I asked for respect, I was sensitive. Eventually, I stopped arguing. Not because I agreed, but because I was tired of being told I was overreacting every time I wanted to be treated like a man. That cake was just the first time they wrote it down. They'd been saying it for years. That night, I sat there in the dark, letting the silence stretch. It didn't feel sad. It felt clean, cold and clean, like standing outside after a snowstorm when everything's shut up tight and no one's talking. I didn't want to yell or break things. I just wanted the noise to stop. And it did. Sitting there, I realized something that made my chest go still. It wasn't the humiliation that hurt. It was the confirmation. They believed it. All of them, Marlene included. They'd believed it the whole time. That's why I didn't call anyone back. That's why I didn't show up the next day to talk it out. I already knew how that would go. I'd get labeled bitter, dramatic, impossible. I'd get gaslit into thinking it was just a joke. And I'd end up apologizing for making a scene. That sentence I whispered to Vince, I didn't pull it out of nowhere. 8 months earlier, I'd been in his father's basement, hauling out boxes nobody had touched in years. My father-in-law, Frank, had finally agreed to clear out the mess after Marlene said the space could be repurposed into a workout room or some other fantasy she'd never actually follow through on. He had a limp that day, something in his hip, so I did most of the lifting while he pointed and made small talk about sports. It was mostly junk, old tax folders, warranties for TVs that hadn't worked since Bush was in office. I'd just pulled open a rusted metal filing cabinet when I saw it. Third drawer down, back corner, a thick manila folder labeled in tidy block handwriting, Dan, Trade and Certification Fund, my name, all caps, right there in black ink. I just stared at it for a second. I already knew Marlene was going to call me slow for taking so long. I already knew her dad was going to pretend he didn't see anything. But I opened the folder anyway. Inside were financial statements, neatly clipped, all from an investment account under the name of Marlene's late uncle, Raymond. I remembered him, quiet guy, always brought books to family dinners, died about 10 years back. One of the statements had a post-it note in his handwriting, for Dan's retraining, use only for trade school or certification. That part hit like a kick to the chest. Because back when the factory closed down, I'd asked Marlene if we had anything, any backup savings, anything tucked away. I wanted to get certified in HVAC or electrical work, something stable. She told me flat out there wasn't anything, told me her uncle's will had nothing in it for us, told me we'd have to figure it out the hard way. So I did. I picked up night shifts as a janitor, took out 2 small loans with crap interest rates, worked double weekends, skipped sleep for 2 years just trying to stay afloat. Thought I was failing because I didn't plan better. But in my hands was the truth. There had been a plan. It just never made it to me. I kept reading. The account started with steady deposits, small, monthly, but consistent. Went on for years, built into something real. Then the withdrawals started, big ones, thousands at a time, no pattern, no notes, just chunks taken out, spread across a couple years, all signed off by Marlene and Vince. There was a power of attorney document paper-clipped inside. I recognized Vince's handwriting right away. He had this messy, slanted signature like he was always in a hurry. The dates matched up too well. Right around the time I was applying for that community tech program. Right when I asked Marlene why we couldn't afford it, and she said, "Life's not fair." My hands started shaking. I sat on the concrete floor, flipping through pages, one after the next, feeling my throat go dry. They had the money. They chose not to tell me. They watched me drown and held the rope in their hands. I took out my phone, turned the flash off, and started photographing every single page, steady as I could. Documents, statements, post-its, signatures, all of it. If I dropped dead tomorrow, I wanted there to be proof. Then I put it all back, exactly how I found it. Angle of the folder, order of the papers, everything. Shut the drawer, shut the cabinet. Didn't say a word to Frank. Just told him I was done for the day and went upstairs. Marlene was sitting on the couch, phone in one hand, glass of wine in the other. She looked up and asked if I'd remembered to throw out the garbage. I told her I had. Then I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the tub for 15 minutes, just breathing. That was the night everything started shifting in my head. I didn't tell anyone, not yet. I needed time. I needed to understand what the hell I was actually dealing with. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't even just theft. It was them writing the script for my failures and making sure I followed it to the letter. I didn't go charging into the kitchen and wave those papers in Marlene's face. I didn't call a family meeting or show up to Vince's office. I waited. Not because I was scared, but because I needed to be sure of what I was holding. That folder wasn't just proof of a lie, it was leverage. And for once in my life, I wanted to use it right. Men like me were taught to carry things. Humiliation, stress, failure. We just pack it down, slap a doing my best label on it, and keep going. You say something and you're dramatic. You keep quiet and they call it strength. But it's not strength, it's silence. And silence is what let them get away with this crap for years. So I kept my mouth shut until I had nothing left to lose. That birthday dinner, that was the final green light. Next morning, I woke up early, before the guilt texts could start rolling in, and opened the family group chat, titled The Campbells plus Dan. Even the name of it felt like a warning label. I typed out one message. I'm aware of the trade and certification fund that was opened in my name. I have copies of all related documents. I won't be discussing this in a casual setting. I'm handling it through proper channels. Please don't contact me about it directly. No caps, no exclamation points, just that. I hit send, turned my phone on silent, and went to make coffee. 12 minutes later, the phone started lighting up. First Marlene, then Vince, then Marlene's mom. Missed calls, texts, some too long to even preview on the lock screen. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The message had already done its job. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard from that family. By noon, I had 33 unread texts, screenshots of group chats I wasn't in. Vince trying to calm people down, saying I was confused and clearly didn't understand how investments worked. He actually said the words, just a misunderstanding. Marlene sent me a voice memo. I didn't even play it at first, just stared at the waveform shaking across my screen. I knew that tone. It'd be soft, tired, with a little crack in it, like she was the one being wronged. Eventually I listened. She talked slow and careful, like I was a child. Said, we all needed the money at the time. Said, I didn't think you'd ever actually go to trade school, Dan. Said, we had bills, things came up. She never said sorry, not once. What she did say was, if this gets out, it's going to damage a lot of relationships. That was the moment I knew they finally saw me clearly, not as the family joke, not as the weak link, but as a threat. Because the second I stopped keeping the secret, everything shifted. They'd spent years using me like a floor mat, easy to step over, always there, always soft. But now I'd pulled the rug out from under them. And I did it without yelling, without a big speech, just one calm sentence in a group chat they thought I'd never stand up in. A few of the extended relatives started reaching out after that. Cousins, an aunt, Marlene's godmother. People who used to chuckle along when someone made a dig about my work ethic. Now they were asking questions. Quietly, of course. Messages like, hey Dan, hope you're doing okay. Just wondering what's really going on. What's going on is simple. I've been holding the truth in my hands for months, and now they know it. And once people know something, they can't unknow it. You can't spin a joke about a man's failures when the paperwork says you created them. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about control, and they were losing it. I didn't want a high-powered law firm with glass walls and elevator music. I wanted someone who wouldn't blink. The guy I found was recommended by a guy I used to do HVAC jobs with. Said he knew a lawyer in Terre Haute who handled messy stuff quietly. No billboard ads. Just a small office above a hardware store, one flight of creaky stairs, and a paper sign taped to the door that read, Mason Law, Walk-ins, Welcome, Judgment Not Included. I knocked once and stepped in. The office smelled like old coffee and carpet cleaner. The lawyer, Ron Mason, looked up from a sandwich and waved me in. Mid-60s, balding, wore a polo instead of a suit. I liked him immediately. "Got something for me?" he asked, wiping his hands. I sat down and pulled out the folder of printed photos I'd made from the certification fund documents. I didn't dress it up. No backstory, no drama, just facts, dates, withdrawals, signatures, and the original intent, all spelled out in Raymond's handwriting. He flipped through them slowly. Didn't nod, didn't grunt, just scanned, page by page, like he was waiting to be proven wrong. After about 10 minutes, he sat back and said, "Well, that's not a gray area." I raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Meaning the fund was designated for a specific purpose. You were the named beneficiary. They used it for something else without your consent. That's misappropriation, plain and simple. I sat there, staring at a crack in the vinyl flooring. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel angry. I just felt hollow. Because hearing it confirmed like that, legal, clean, and undeniable, hit harder than anything that had come before it. Harder than the cake, the comments, the fake apologies. He leaned forward. "You want to go after it?" I looked him in the eye. "Yeah." He nodded once. "Then we'll start with demand letters, certified mail. Both your ex-wife and her brother will get separate packets. We'll include a breakdown, original value, withdrawals, estimated interest. Give them 10 days to respond before we escalate." I asked what escalation looked like. Lawsuit, court filings, discovery. You ready for that kind of fallout? I didn't even blink. They've been burning the bridge for 20 years. I'm just the first one to admit it's on fire. He smiled, tight and short, like he didn't hear that kind of thing often from guys like me. We went over numbers for another half hour. I signed the paperwork, gave him my copy of the documents. Left with nothing in my hands but a receipt and a strange sense of calm, the letters went out that same week, and that's when the family turned on itself. The group chat went dead. Marlene texted me separately, said I was trying to ruin lives over a misunderstanding. Vince emailed from a work account like I was a client, telling me this doesn't need to be adversarial. Her mom left me a voicemail crying, said I was tearing apart the people who love you most. But the tone was different now. The arrogance was gone. Nobody was laughing. Nobody was calling me sensitive. They were scared. I wasn't the failed son-in-law anymore. I wasn't the charity case, the punchline, the man who couldn't get it right. I was a liability, a man with proof, a man who stopped playing nice. And the beautiful part was, I never had to raise my voice, never had to show up at their door or throw a tantrum. I let a stack of papers speak for me. All those years they joked about how I couldn't hold down a plan. Turned out, I just needed the right one. She showed up on a Tuesday afternoon. No text, no warning. Just knocked like she still lived there, like the locks hadn't changed and the silence hadn't spoken louder than her voice ever could. I opened the door and saw her standing there in jeans and a blazer, like she dressed for a meeting instead of a reckoning. She held a coffee in one hand and her phone in the other, probably rehearsing something on the way over. "Marlene," I said flat, not cold, just done. "Can I come in?" she asked, already stepping forward like the answer didn't matter. I didn't stop her. I also didn't offer a chair. She walked to the kitchen like muscle memory was still on her side, set the coffee down, and turned to face me. "I didn't come here to fight," she said. I leaned against the doorway. "Good. I'm not interested." She sighed, gave me the look I'd seen 100 times, the one that always came before a long speech where she painted herself as the one who held it all together. "You don't understand what was happening back then," she started. "We were drowning. My dad needed help with his medical bills. Vince had just lost that deal. I was picking up extra hours trying to keep us from falling apart. The fund was just sitting there. Not yours," I cut in. "Not Vince's. It had my name on it." Her eyes narrowed a little, but her voice stayed calm. "I made a judgment call. You weren't working. You didn't even know what you wanted to do. I thought, no, you decided it for me. You lied about it. For years." She crossed her arms, tone hardening. "I didn't lie. I made a decision. I was trying to protect our family." "You protected your image," I said. "You didn't want to be married to a guy who needed help getting back on his feet. You wanted to play savior, not partner. Silence stretched. She didn't deny it. Instead, she shifted again. Classic Marlene, changed the lens, made herself the martyr. Do you think I wanted to take that money? Do you think I enjoyed watching you struggle? I carried everything, Dan. Everything. You had no idea what kind of pressure I was under. You didn't carry me, I said, sharper now. You sabotaged me. Then you stood there and let everyone mock me for sinking. She shook her head, blinking hard. Still no apology, still no admission. Just more of the same. Explanations, excuses, emotional theater. This doesn't have to go nuclear, she said quietly. We can settle it privately. No lawyers, no courts. Think about Maddie and Josh. I didn't flinch. You should have thought about them before teaching them that their father was a punchline. Her face cracked for a second. Not with guilt. Just the realization that guilt wouldn't work on me anymore. I watched her shoulders drop a little. She glanced around the apartment like she was trying to remember how to guilt me into softness. But that version of me, the one who bent, who swallowed it, who made it easier for everyone else, he was gone. I'm not backing down, I said. The lawyer stays, the letters stay, the truth stays. She nodded once, tight, like her teeth were clenched behind it. Okay, she said. Just that. No apology, no ownership. Then she grabbed her coffee and left without another word. The door clicked shut, and I stood in the quiet afterward, hands loose at my sides. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt older. Like I'd finally stepped into the weight I'd been dragging for years. My phone stayed quiet that week, then the next. Maddie stopped calling. Josh didn't text back. I didn't chase it. Truth costs something. That's the part no one tells you. It doesn't win you applause or hugs. It takes things from you. But it leaves you with something else too. Something cleaner. Something honest. For the first time in a long damn while, I felt lighter. And I didn't owe anyone a single explanation for it. The courtroom didn't look like anything from TV. Just four walls, cheap carpet, buzzing lights, and chairs that hurt your back after 10 minutes. No drama, no speeches, just a waiting list of cases and a judge who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I wore a plain button-up and jeans, brought the folder, sat alone at the front, hands folded. Across the aisle, Marlene sat with Vince and their lawyer, some stiff in a navy suit who kept whispering to them like it was going to change anything. Marlene didn't look at me. Vince glanced once, then turned to his phone. I didn't bother staring them down. I wasn't there to win a standoff. I was there for the record. When our case got called, it moved fast. Their lawyer tried to throw some miscommunication angle into the mix, said the funds weren't clearly designated, said I had no formal claim of expectation. Mason didn't flinch. He stood up, handed over copies of the investment documents, Uncle Raymond's handwritten note, the withdrawals with Vince's signature. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't explain feelings. He just gave the court facts. The judge flipped through the papers without asking much. Then he looked at Vince. Is this your signature on the withdrawal forms? Vince shifted in his chair. Yes, but that's all. Sit down. The judge turned to Marlene. And you authorized these? She nodded once, tight. We did what we thought was necessary at the time. That was it. No apology, no context. Just a shrug in legal form. The judge leaned back, adjusted his glasses, and said, This account was clearly created for the plaintiff's certification and training. Funds were used without consent. I'm ordering repayment of the full amount, with accrued interest to be made in monthly installments. The record will reflect misappropriation of designated funds. No emotion, no lecture, just a gavel tap and a ruling. It was over in under 15 minutes. They stayed seated as I stood up. Marlene kept her eyes on the table. Vince looked down like he was reading something that wasn't there. Their lawyer packed up quick. Nobody looked at me, not once. That silence on the walkout felt different, heavier, not shame, just the quiet crack of a story finally breaking. For years, I was the guy who didn't try hard enough, the man who never pulled it together, the almost husband, the in-law they could laugh at behind a drink. Now there was a paper trail. Court documents, judge's orders, repayment plans, something solid that said, You were wrong about him, and you knew it. I didn't feel victorious. This wasn't a win. There was no cheering section, no backslaps. It wasn't that kind of moment, but I did feel something I hadn't felt in years. Validated. Not for being perfect. Not for being right every step of the way. Just for telling the truth and having it land where it needed to. Outside, the sun hit my face like it was reminding me I still existed. Still here, still standing. I walked down the courthouse steps alone. No one waiting for me, no ride, no hug. But my shoulders felt straighter. My breath came easier. And for once, I wasn't carrying their version of my story anymore. I took the bus home from court. Didn't need to rush. I just sat by the window while Indiana rolled by. Flat, gray, familiar. Something about the silence on that ride made the whole thing feel real. I'd finally stopped waiting for someone else to fix the story. The first repayment check came 2 weeks later. Certified envelope. No note. Just a number and a signature that looked smaller than I remembered. The second one came late. By the third, their lawyer was contacting mine about renegotiating the interest. Mason said, "Let them squirm. That's not your problem." I did exactly that. The family didn't call. Maddie texted once, short and stiff. "Hope you're okay." Josh didn't reach out at all. No birthday cards, no updates. And for the first time in my life, I didn't chase the silence. I just let it sit. The relatives who used to love gossip suddenly had nothing to say. I ran into one of Marlene's cousins at the gas station. She looked right at me, then looked away like I was holding a mirror too close. That told me everything I needed to know. I didn't do some big social media post. I didn't call people to re-explain myself. I cut contact quietly. Life didn't magically get better. I still had to work, still had bills, still had days where I stared at the ceiling too long. But the difference now, the shame wasn't mine anymore. I stopped calling humiliation family tradition. I stopped mistaking sarcasm for affection. And I stopped letting people laugh at me under the excuse of love. I started going to the gym again, picked up weekend jobs that gave me time to think. I even fixed the leaking sink in my bathroom, one of those dumb things I'd been putting off for months. Little by little, I stopped needing their approval to feel like a man.